Hey guys, welcome to a new review. This time I'm reviewing the newest episode of The Walking Dead, Season 6, Episode 6, Always Accountable. Now, this episode was pretty good. I don't think it was the greatest, and it's not a standout among, like, most episodes, but of this season, I'd say it's the fourth best episode. We've had 6 episodes, this is the fourth best. I have to do a spoiler here for you guys. This is a potential spoiler for the future. I mean, this is a spoiler-filled review, of course, because I'm reviewing the entire episode, but this is for possible future episodes. Dwight is that blonde guy. Now, I know a lot of you might be thinking, how does he know that for sure? I looked it up on IMDb, and his character's name is Dwight. I don't know if they said that in this episode. I'm pretty sure they didn't, but on IMDb, he's marked as Dwight. So, we've got Dwight now. And I figured he would be Dwight because of what we see in this episode, and I'll go over that in a second, but I'm going to do the sort of synopsis of the episode first. First, we start out with, I'm going to do Sasha and Abraham's side first because it's short, and then I'm going to talk about Daryl's side because they got split up, so it's their two different stories. Now, from the start, the Saviors, that's Negan's group. Negan is a comic character, and he's going to be in the show at some point. They've already casted him. Check out the IMDb. I'm pretty sure they show his name somewhere. But anyway, Daryl gets split up from them because they're getting shot at by the Saviors while they're trying to lead the walkers away from the place. And by this point, I believe they're going to turn around and go a different way to get back to Alexandria, which will be hard for them when they do get back there because, well, I mean, last episode, remember that? Yeah. And Dwight comes in this episode on Daryl's side, but we don't see him on Abraham and Sasha's side, so they don't know who this guy is. I suppose at some point they'll find out, but let's go on with Abraham and Sasha's story. It's pretty much a lot of talk, but we do see some interesting stuff. First off, for them, we get to hear that the reason that Abraham decided to go with Sasha is because he didn't want someone who's Fruit Loops to be in charge of this mission alone, you know. So he wanted to be there to make sure that she doesn't do anything rash or stupid or insane. Other than that, they don't really say anything all that important. We get to see Sasha acting weird, we get to see Abraham acting weird, and then Abraham finds RPGs, rocket-propelled grenades, you know, those things that are in Call of Duty and every video game that's ever made, it seems. Yeah, he finds 3 of those in a container. Let me get to that. He decides to go exploring because Sasha just wants to stay in this office building and wait. After they split up from Daryl, she decides they should stay put because then Daryl can find them because he's a tracker. If they moved around, then it would be harder for him to track them down. So Abraham decides to go searching for supplies and stuff. And he ends up on this like freeway and finds a Humvee that has the RPGs in it. There's only 3, yet there's slots for 4. He looks behind him and there's a walker that's got one hanging on his back. And he decides to try and get it. The walker's like on a fence that's hanging off of the freeway, and he's jabbed onto the fence, like impaled. And Abraham tries to get it, but struggles, and it's like he's trying to reach around, but it keeps trying to bite him, so he's yelling at it and acting insane. Wah! And he decides to like give up on that, and he's huffing around down there, gets like away from the fence, and he cut his shirt somehow so we could see his wonderful physique. But then the walker splits in half and falls to the ground, and the RPG is just hanging there. So now they have 4 RPGs, which that will come in when we see the Saviors again. Now I don't think we're going to see the Saviors until like season 7, next season, but maybe some more cameos throughout this season will be shown of them, but I don't think... I mean, if they're sticking to the comics, it should be a little bit longer until we see Negan. At this point, we've only seen, like, his group in this episode, just some people from his group. Including Dwight, and Dwight's girlfriend, and some blonde chick. Anyway, Abraham goes back to Sasha. They talk for a little bit. The weird exchanges. They're just pretty much their part of the story is the boring part. Daryl's part is the more interesting part. But they stay in this office until Daryl comes and everything ends there. But that's intercut between Daryl's story, which we start out, after he gets separated from them, he's like walking his bike through the woods and decides to stash it. And then he gets he's like wounded from falling down while he was getting chased by the saviors. And now he's walking around, blood dripping from his hand, but we don't know really how he hurt himself. And it doesn't seem to be all that serious, because later on it looks like it's fine, there's not blood everywhere. I guess it was just like a small cut. When I saw the trailer of this, I thought it was going to be something a bit more dire, but it's not. It's just him cutting his hand somehow. Probably just a scrape from when he fell off the bike. Anyway, he's got that jacket on, but I don't know what he does with that jacket. Does he leave that with his motorcycle? He took that off at one point, and then he was just bare-sleeved, and I don't really know what he did with it. I hope he doesn't lose that jacket. I really like that jacket. And I'm sure he does too. But he loses a lot more than that jacket in this episode, and I'll go over that in a second. He runs into these two girls, and they like say, "We didn't mean to do this," or the supplies were ours anyway. And then he's like confused, turns to the side, and wham, gets hit over the head by Dwight with, I suppose, it was the butt of his gun, right? Pistol? Yeah, I think it was Dwight's pistol. And he wakes up tied up, and Dwight's talking to him. Now, this part we saw in the Comic-Con preview, I think, like other trailers and stuff, but not the trailer for this episode. We didn't see that in this. But what he tells him is basically just that it's not his. It's a confusing part here. They're like, don't say specifically what's wrong with them and why they're running away from the group that they were with, and why the group is chasing them. But they do say that there's like, people will do anything to live, and they're willing to accept anything to the point where they're just existing, and that's not worth it, I guess. And Daryl is like their prisoner for a while until they run into this. They took his crossbow and all and put it in this one big like duffel bag type thing of theirs, which is important in a second. They see this place that's called Patrick's Fuel. Now, in my prediction, I figured this place would be a little more important. I figured it would like lead to an explosion. Maybe it was like a camp that someone was set up in, but it's not really all that important. Daryl right then decides to make his move because they're staring at this place trying to, I think like someone that they were with was there, and they see it overrun with walkers. But anyway, Daryl takes the bag and runs at that point and manages to get his ropes free once he's away from them and hiding. And then this walker starts walking up, so he reaches in the bag and he's trying to get his crossbow out, but it's stuck in there and messing with it. And I'm just like the whole time, dude, just grab your knife that's in there, right? Just dispatch it with the knife. But anyway, he has to get his crossbow out, struggles, gets it out, and shoot, kills it real fast. It wasn't really much of a problem. They made it seem more like it was something to worry about than it really was, because the walker was so slow, and if he wanted to, he could have just gotten up and moved with the bag and then got it out somewhere else. So, yeah. But then he sees in this bag is a cooler that has something written on it that says insulin. So that means that one of them is a diabetic, and that sort of gives him remorse about stealing their bag. He decides to go back and hunt them down, I guess, to return their stuff. When he does meet up with them, Dwight like pulls a gun on him. He's trying to threaten him, but Daryl's got his crossbow on him first, so the guy decides to relinquish his gun to Daryl. And Daryl now has the gun and the crossbow, but then the saviors come up in like this truck that's smashing down trees, and they have to run and hide. And Daryl hands the guy the pistol again, so that bites him in the butt in a minute. But anyway, Uh, we see this from what they're seeing, the perspective of Daryl and those guys. We see this one guy walk up who's, on IMDb his name is Cam. I don't know if that means anything. Maybe there's a character in the comics named Cam, or maybe it's just nothing. But anyway, Daryl makes a noise because he sees a walker in a tree and he figures he'll get caught by that walker, and he does. He gets bitten on the arm, and this guy named Wade, who I suppose is the leader of the group that's hunting them, and they don't show what Wade looks like in the episode, but you can, on IMDb, you can click on the actor and see what he looks like. And you see that these people just really are kind of cold, because the guy gets bitten and Wade just chops it off for him and it's like, okay, now walk it off. It's like, dude, the guy just lost his arm. I mean, that's pretty cold to just be like, walk it off. But, I mean, it's different from what Herschel was like. When they had to cut Herschel's leg off, it was a huge thing. It was like, oh my gosh, but for the Saviors, I guess they've had to do this so many times, they're sort of desensitized towards chopping each other's limbs off. Anyway, I kind of thought that Wade would be Dwight, and they're trying to mess with us, but no, the blonde guy is Dwight. It becomes obvious, and then IMDb having his name Dwight, that's too obvious. It's like a child could figure that one out. And from there, Daryl walks around with them for a while, and then they come upon this like burnt tent, and these two dead bodies that, like, the plastic of the tent has covered them and encased them in what looks like some sort of plastic chamber that's in the form of their bodies. And the blonde girl, I guess they all knew, the three people knew who this was, and they come up, the blonde girl comes up close with like flowers, and then the two walkers attack her and eat her. She was the one with diabetes, by the way, and we see her get a shot from it at one point in this episode. It kind of seemed like she would be more important, but not really. She wasn't a character that was needed in this episode, but they wanted to have someone to kill off, I guess. Which, I mean, she served that purpose. And they wanted to have someone with diabetes so that Daryl could have to bring the bag back to them. Anyway. From there, we see Daryl and the other two talking, and he tells them that there's an... Oh, wait, first he asks Dwight the three questions. How many walkers have you killed? Dwight answers, dozens. How many humans have you killed? 0. He says, none. Then why? He says he doesn't kill humans because that would make him... You can't come back from that. He said, yeah, you can't come back from that. Which is odd, because Dwight in the comics was a real murdering son of a bastard. He would murder at the drop of a hat, which is... I figure since we're probably going to see these guys in the 7th season, we won't see Dwight until then, and by then he'll be more hardened and ready to kill people. And also, I think he gets his face burnt because of... Well, in a second. Daryl tells them that there's a place that a group that he's with, that they're all like it was before the apocalypse happened there. And they decide to go with him. But then they change their mind when he comes to the motorcycle and he says, I'm going to get my group and then we can come back and get you. And Dwight just like changes his mind and pulls the pistol on him, makes him give him his crossbow. So now he doesn't have his crossbow. And he and the girl ride off with Daryl's bike. So now Daryl doesn't have his bike, he doesn't have his crossbow, he doesn't have his dignity, he's just left there sad. And then Daryl finds a truck and rides it back to Abraham and Sasha. So that's what happens to Daryl in that episode. I thought this would be a little more Daryl based, but it seemed like it was more about Dwight and his group stuff. That was the more interesting part. What we saw of Daryl was just like more or less okay. It's not like, do you remember the episode in season 2 called Cherokee Rose? That was Daryl's episode, Chupacabra. That was Daryl's episode, and it was pretty good. It showed a lot of Daryl, and I liked that. But in this, not so much development. I suppose they don't feel like they don't have to develop Daryl anymore, but it seems like he's just become sort of that character that walks around. He doesn't do anything anymore. And in this episode, he's pretty much the same. He just exists and doesn't show much charisma or strength. But I like Daryl, so seeing him in an episode is good. And now we know that how they're going to handle the two people with crossbow thing. I figured, like, they can't have Dwight come in with a crossbow and then there's Daryl with a crossbow. That would be awkward. Well, what happens is he stole Daryl's crossbow, so now that's the crossbow that Dwight's going to use. And Daryl, I guess, is no longer going to be the crossbow-wielding guy, so he's lost a little more of his character there. So it seems like they want to phase out Daryl so that they could kill him. Do you think he's going to meet Negan's bat? If you don't know what that means, I'm not going to tell you that, because that's a bit of a spoiler, I suppose, for the comics. And anyway, Daryl didn't get much development, but we did see a lot of Dwight, and now we know he has his crossbow, he's got his girl, which leads to his face getting burnt, which he's not burnt-faced yet, which is a big aspect of his character, and that's, I suppose, will come in the next season, or maybe the next part of this season. We've only got 2 episodes to go until we meet our mid-season finale, and that's really got me sad, because it takes a long time for them to start up the season again, and then you get your 8 episodes, and then it's over. You gotta wait until Fear the Walking Dead, and then Walking Dead again. Fear the Walking Dead is not very good. I'm gonna do a review of that first season, and I'm gonna explain why I don't like that show. But anyway, make sure to leave a comment about this episode or the previous episode, and I will do a video where I explain your question. Make sure it's a question in the comment pertaining to specifically something Walking Dead. Hopefully this episode or the last episode, or a past episode or a future episode. And I will tell you what my opinion on that is, or I will investigate it and find out what the actual answer is. Other than that, I think I've gone through everything that has to be talked about. I think, I forgot to mention, Dwight is heading back to his group. I think Negan's going to be so angry that he left that he's going to burn his face for that. And that's why we have burn face Dwight. That'll be cool. I can't wait to see Dwight in the future. I don't think they're going to show much of him in this season, but tell me what you guys think in the comments. I love comments, and I love you guys. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.